Welcome to Visual Book Summary. Published in 1954, The Doors of Perception is one of the most provocative and mind-expanding books ever written. In it, Aldous Huxley, already famous for Brave New World, documents his experiences under the influence of mescaline, a psychedelic compound derived from the peyote cactus. But this book is more than just an account of a drug trip. It's an exploration of perception, consciousness, and the limitations of the human mind. Huxley argues that our everyday reality is a mere sliver of what truly exists, filtered through what he calls a reducing valve in our brain. What happens when that filter is lifted? Huxley found out. The experiment begins. It was a bright May morning in 1953 when Aldous Huxley swallowed 400 milligrams of mescaline, sat down in his study, and waited. He wasn't searching for pleasure or escape. This was a scientific inquiry. Huxley wanted to explore consciousness itself. Would it unlock hidden truths or dissolve into hallucinations? What he found was something else entirely. First came a shift in perception. Colors intensified, patterns shimmered with meaning, and everyday objects took on an almost divine significance. A simple vase of flowers became an explosion of light, every petal alive with an internal fire. The folds of his trousers turned into intricate landscapes, deeper than the human eye could normally perceive. What Huxley discovered was not another world, but this one, seen without the filters of habit and language. The mind's reducing valve. Huxley wasn't the first to explore altered states of consciousness, but his analysis was different. He wasn't interested in hallucinations. He was fascinated by the idea that the human brain acts as a filter, limiting what we perceive. He suggested that evolution forced us to see only what was necessary for survival. Colors, textures, the sheer wonder of being alive. All of this is dulled by routine and necessity. But under mescaline, the filter lifted, revealing the world in its full intensity. Reality wasn't changed, it was expanded. A chair wasn't just a chair. It was an object vibrating with significance. The walls of the room seemed less solid, as if they were a mere suggestion. The Doors of Perception. Huxley's title comes from William Blake. If the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it is, infinite. This is what he experienced, the infinite. Everything he saw felt sacred, yet ordinary. He realized that human society was built on illusions, systems of belief, hierarchy, even time itself. Under mescaline, those illusions fell away. He saw reality as it truly was, not something separate from consciousness, but deeply intertwined with it. Huxley speculated that mystics, artists, and visionaries had always accessed this higher perception. What they called divine enlightenment, he called an expanded state of awareness. But was this vision sustainable in daily life? The legacy of Huxley's vision. Huxley wasn't advocating for reckless drug use. He was searching for deeper truths. The Doors of Perception inspired generations of thinkers, artists, and even musicians. The name of the rock band, The Doors? It came from this very book. His work fueled the psychedelic revolution of the 1960s, influencing figures like Timothy Leary and the counterculture movement. But his questions remain relevant today. What if our perception of reality is incomplete? What if the world we see is only a fraction of what truly exists? Huxley believed that humans could expand their minds without drugs, through meditation, art, and philosophy. But one thing was clear. Once you've glimpsed reality beyond the veil, you can never unsee it. Should you read it? Is The Doors of Perception worth reading? Absolutely. But it's not just about drugs. It's about questioning the nature of reality itself. Whether you agree with Huxley or not, this book is a mind-expanding experience. It forces you to see the world differently, and once you do, you may never see it the same way again. But to fully understand The Doors of Perception, we need to step back. Who was Aldous Huxley before that fateful day in May 1953? What led him to take mescaline in the first place? And how did his unique background shape the way he perceived the world? Aldous Huxley was no ordinary writer experimenting with mind-altering substances. By the time he tried mescaline in 1953, he was already one of the most respected intellectuals of his time, known for his dystopian masterpiece, Brave New World, 1932. But there's something many readers overlook. By the 1950s, Huxley was almost completely blind. His vision had been deteriorating since his youth, the result of a serious eye infection. This had shaped his worldview, literally. He relied on his mind's eye more than his physical sight. Some biographers argue that Huxley's fascination with perception stemmed from his own limitations. He understood more than most that what we see is never the full picture. This is why he was so receptive to the idea that mescaline might reveal new ways of seeing. Huxley had long been fascinated by Eastern philosophy, but mescaline made him experience it firsthand. During his trip, he realized that many of the insights described in Buddhist and Hindu texts, such as the idea that the self is an illusion, weren't just abstract concepts. They were directly observable truths. In The Doors of Perception, he writes about the experience of egolessness, a dissolving of the boundaries between himself and the world around him. This aligns strikingly with the experiences of Buddhist monks in deep meditation. Huxley wasn't just hallucinating, he was tapping into an ancient mode of perception that mystics had been describing for centuries. Perhaps the most poetic and overlooked moment of Huxley's life came on November 22, 1963, the day he died. On his deathbed, weak from cancer, he could barely speak. Instead, he wrote a note to his wife, Laura. LSD, try 100 milligrams intramuscular. His wife administered the dose, and Huxley passed away peacefully, reportedly with a look of serenity on his face. It's almost as if, in his final moments, he wanted to see if his own theories were true. Would the doors of perception truly open one last time? Huxley's last act was one of intellectual bravery. He wasn't just a writer reflecting on altered states. He lived his philosophy to the very end. Thanks for watching, and let us know in the comments how this story impacted you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time on Visual Book Summary, where we bring the essence of literature to life.